time. I'm Jen.
I'm Dave.
I'm Murray.
And in this video, we're going to be building up this wall into Mechanicus terrain.
That's right, the remnants of Coriel Zeth's magma city, captured and excavated from the wall of this bit of hillside here, will be the backdrop to the Cord Reaver.
5-star ensuite can see right through the hole in the Reaver.
Let's get started.
Let's just do it.
We're halfway through this project. This is crazy. Let's just...
Videos! You get videos!
All right, to kick things off, we got this battlefield set from Games Workshop that we thought would work perfectly on this wall. There's a couple of pieces to assemble, but it wasn't too difficult, and everyone knows how much I love building terrain.
Yeah, the hard part was that we wanted some walls that were mostly intact, which is kind of hard with Warhammer terrain since it's all literally rubble.
Yeah, they make it really hard to actually build whole buildings, but it kind of suited our purpose. Titans were going to take up most of the board. We just needed something to decorate the edge, and Coriel Zeth's Magma City was destroyed like 10,000 years ago, so these remnants make sense to not be repaired.
So this is actually a new kit by Games Workshop, and I had built the previous one for the hobby store in town. They made a few different changes to this kit, but overall it was pretty easy to assemble, and a lot of it just sort of made sense.
It looks like there's a lot more variation in the panels. The old Cities of Death was basically just sort of the same panel again and again and again.
Yeah, 100%. This is definitely more interchangeable and had honestly better pieces. Like, there was just a bit of variance and a bit of difference, which is good.
Cool.
After I was done clipping everything out and getting rid of all those nasty sprue tags, it was time to start gluing it together and decide what color I wanted to paint it. Now, our board is primarily this orangey red color, so I wanted to paint it something that would stand out. And on the box, it was painted this beautiful cream color, so I decided to go with that.
Yeah, it's a good idea considering that a lot of Mechanicus stuff is red itself, which would really blend in. So yeah, I think that was the correct decision.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Now, having painted one of the Titans before, I originally wanted to see if the chipping effect would work on the terrain. So I based everything in a matte black, then a spray of silver, then a spray of varnish, and then using chipping medium on top, and finishing it off with a cream spray. So I was tossing up between two different methods on how to paint this terrain. The first method I wanted to try was using my own sponges and detailing effects to create a weathered look. Starting off with this sepia wash that I found from Vallejo, which I actually got told wasn't really favored by some of the crew here, but I decided to give it a try, and I actually didn't mind it too much. It was a little bubbly compared to contrast paints, but I thought it came out pretty well.
For clarity there, we didn't favor it for airbrushing. It seems like the Vallejo washes have some kind of like lumpiness to them, maybe some sediment in the bottom of them, and they just led to rapidly clogging the airbrushes in a way that Citadel washes and contrast have never done for me.
The second method I tried was using the chipping medium that we had done on the Titans. And after doing this for about a couple of minutes, I decided that this was going to take forever. It really wasn't worth the trouble of trying to chip away all this paint when I knew I could do this effectively by using sponges. So in the end, I went over the top of this, but I'm glad I gave it a shot just to see if it was possible, and yeah, it is, but I think there's better methods than this one.
Yeah, worth an experiment. There's a lot of small details on that. You could probably get a lot more out of a dry brush or a sponge.
I totally agree. Once I had my Trezor method down pat, I knew I was going to go for the sepia tone wash and not bother with the chipping medium. It was time to spray down all of the other pieces of terrain and give them a good wash and let them dry, ready for a dry brush. Using the same cream color that I had sprayed down these pieces originally, I went over the top with a very quick dry brush just to bring out some of those details. Luckily enough, this terrain had a ton of detail in it, so this wasn't too hard to do. So I knew this terrain would have to go through a couple of rounds of detailing and effects to make it look really cool. So the first round I did was a stippling of some silver to look like the chipping effect I wanted to achieve originally.
Yeah, it looks like you're managing this a lot faster and probably with a bit more control.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually really like using the sponges to add these effects on. I think it just puts it in the right place and where it needs to be. While waiting for the silver to dry, I decided to add a couple of feature panels to these terrains. This included the doors that were on these walls, and I wanted to paint them in a bright red color. I used a contrast paint to do this, and it helped settle in the recesses and look nice and colorful. Once that was dry, it was time to add on more of the weathering effects. And I'd used this rain effect before on some of the cyberpunk terrain that we have here at the studio. So I slopped this all on top onto where I think rain would fall if it was in the mountain.
I haven't used this before. It actually looks pretty good. Also, the slight green tint will contrast really nicely with the red board.
Once the rain effects were done and dried, I went over the top with a streaking grime. I found that although I liked the green of the rain marks, I wanted to add a little bit of muddiness onto this terrain piece. And the streaking grime did this very effectively. So for the last bits of weathering, I added on some rust effects, dry blood, and just a final touch of that silver just to really make it stand out.
Dried blood?
Yeah, just a little bit, not
What
much.
was that for?
I like to think that maybe there was once upon a time a victim that died here and, well, the blood just kind of stayed.
Notice. I just thought it was a cool like oil grime effect.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice, yeah, worked well.
Have you ever wanted to wear clothes? Now you can wear clothes that are branded with tables, tops, and times.
Our shirts come in some amazing colors, such as the Tabletop Time logo comes in various options for you, and there's even now finally the Tabletop Tape Time tee as well.
It's back! Our best-selling merch is the jankiest one, and we love that you love that. It's very tabletop time. I like it.
These shirts are super comfortable, breathable, and nice, and the hoodies are super warm and are super fluffy inside. I love my hoodie.
But Dave, where's the Sakura design?
It's on the website, Murray.
Oh, nice. Oh, this does feel nice.
To get your merch today, there's the web link. Thanks, Liam.
So make sure to click in the link in our description. Head on over to our website because any of your merchy purchies support the channel.
Merchy
Purchies. We're keeping that. All right. Hoo-yah!
So it is time to carve up this part of the board, and this is a part that you need to make sure you're wearing protection for, but is very satisfying. So come and watch me as I carve this baby up. That's your mask. I get the cyberpunk mask. You get the scary mask.
So when Murray had glued together the core of the board, he'd really glued together the template, giving us enough space to do whatever we wanted with it. But when we were thinking of deployment zones, as I previously mentioned, it was important that we minimize the space. So we immediately got to carving back a lot of that foam wool until it was taking up as little of the play space as possible. Often we were using the edge of the foam carving tool bent to create some natural variation to help it look like a cliff edge.
This process was pretty slow, but we definitely wanted to make sure we didn't take off too much foam and have to add more later, rather than just taking our time with it.
Now the idea is of course that all of these ruins are being effectively excavated from ancient buried lava flows. So we wanted to make sure they all felt inset, as if archaeologists of the Mechanicum had begun to dig them out again, looking for maybe the history or secrets of the creation of the noosphere. Now there was definitely consideration in our placement up the top that there was a small area for people to place some units, but there was also a lot of area that could become a bit precarious for models. So we'd have to come up with a way to deal with that a bit later.
We also had to consider the fact that there would be a Titan standing in front of this terrain as well, so if we wanted to place any pieces on the ground, we needed to make sure that they weren't in the Titan's way.
As a passionate fan of the Warhammer universe, the origins of the Mechanicum, and in particular the Dark Mechanicum, have always been of interest to me. It's one of my favorite factions, and nowhere are their origins explored better than the Horus Heresy novel Mechanicum. Now there are spoilers to the book Mechanicum to follow, so if you're not interested in hearing any of that, skip forward a couple of minutes. But otherwise, for those who've read the book or are interested in learning a little bit about it, I'll give you a brief overview of the Magma City, which we're building, and more importantly, the setting of which our whole Titan board has been taking place. In order to win over the Mechanicum to his side, Horus promised Kalborhal the freedom to explore all kinds of technological research that had been forbidden to them by the Emperor. He sent Malgator back to Kalborhal with access codes to the ancient, secret, and very forbidden Vault of Moravec. While the ancient and sealed technology in the vaults of Moravec would have brought Mars under Kalborhal's complete control, the noosphere, a technology that allows for collective consciousness through the interaction of human minds, played a crucial role during the schism of Mars. Adept Coriel Zeth, who controlled the Magma City, a forge located in an active volcano, had shared the remarkable noosphere technology with fellow open-minded adepts and friends. Responding to the scrap code as a calamity or natural disaster, Adept Coriel Zeth was quick to respond, instructing her allies to cut themselves off from the networks of the Mechanicum and rely exclusively on the noosphere for communication. The development of ancient technology was used as the tinder to light the fire of all-out war. And that open civil war began when the Dark Mechanicum attacked Coriel Zeth and her allies. The Magma City would not have been able to defend itself if it wasn't for the stalwart defense of the Knights of House Tyrannus and also the glorious Legio Tempestus, fighting off the vicious forces of Malgator and his Dark Mechanicum, as well as the traitor titans of Legio Mortis. And that is the battlefield that we have been building over these last couple of weeks. But with all of that said, and you understanding the background for the board and why we've built it to commemorate this final stand of the loyal Mechanicum on Mars, I think it's clear I've talked enough, and it's time to get back to the video.
Sculpt-it!
Yay! My favorite medium to use, Sculpt-it. So as with all of these boards, this part, once everything was glued in, needed a nice round of Sculpt-it.
I really wanted to discourage players attempting to use the ledges to place their models in any way that could potentially damage people's models, so we used the Sculpt-a-Mold to form little peaks in the areas where models really shouldn't have been placed. It is the designer's intent that only a small area up the top of this section is playable terrain and the rest is impassable terrain. Now, I've run a game store for many years, so I know what tournament players are like. I know you're going to try and put your models up here, but don't. They'll fall off and break.
We also needed to carve out the place where the Reaver Titan would be sitting. So Dave did this pretty thoroughly, and once it was all carved out, it was time to put some sculptor mold inside it.
Murray, this is where your baby Titan's going to go.
Splump.
All right, Jen, we are done this part of the board for tonight. It is late on a Tuesday night. We're about to do roleplay on Tabletop Time Roleplay.
Yes.
But this is some sculptor mold drying, which is very good to see. I'm excited to see this come together, and a little home for Murray's Cord Reaver. Awesome. Well, let's go roleplay.
Good night, everyone.
So it was time to actually glue in the terrain, so we used a hot glue gun to fix it into place. There were only a couple of bits that weren't stuck on, and now that the foam was sealed, we actually had something to glue it onto. We'd be coming in with a second round of sculptor mold today, one that would hide any of these glue seams and fully integrate the plastic terrain into the sculpted terrain.
Again, this is another day where we had chucked the board outside to dry and had taken some of the pigment out of the sculpted. But like Dave said, we're going to go over it again, so, well, no big deal. When looking back on this project, I am super glad we decided to add this terrain piece to the board. I feel like it gives it so much character and tells more of a story than just having the Titans on the board. We've got a few compliments over Arc over these pieces, which I was really surprised by, but again, I'm super glad that I got to do this part of the project.
A whole bunch of Titans is really cool and all, but it's great to see the world that they were actually fighting over.
For the second round of Sculpted, we added in a bit more texture to these caves and included more playable areas for people to put their models.
It's starting to look a bit more natural now, as if, like, you know, it was actually built into this area. Everything was then later covered, but it looks like it fits there.
It was time for Anakin Skywalker to get his collar up because it's time to get sandy.
We gave the board a thorough spray of PVA and water just to make sure that the sand would stick to the board, and with a final varnish spray to make sure everything was sticking nicely. It's time for some final reveals.
Yes!
Always, a huge thank you to all of our Patreons. It's with your help and support that we can make awesome videos like this one and this amazing series.
Yes, it is your assistance that has helped us get this far. We wouldn't have been able to do such a thing without your support, and we greatly appreciate it and hope that you can join us for our next adventure.
Patreon gives you awesome exclusives, which you can find out down in the links below if you'd like to consider joining.
This includes monthly mini review, discussions that are available to talk to us in our off time, and also just some cheeky sneak peeks on what we were working on during this project.
And if you can't support us on Patreon, we always appreciate a like and a subscribe. So if you could give us a huge thumbs up, it really does help the channel.
And thus, Kalbor Hal had opened the vaults of Moravec, gotten all of those secret ancient technologies that stopped them from getting. Anyway, I thought it was
And that's all we have time for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you're enjoying all of our Titan builds, but we're almost done. There's not many left.
Help me.
Was I info dumping again?
I mean, we're just really busy. We've got a lot of stuff to do.
We've got a table to finish.
Yeah.
A table to finish.
That's a lie. This is like a week and a half after Arc. Sup everyone, we had a great time.